Silas lived a quiet life. His days were filled with the rhythm of the farm, the crowing of roosters at dawn, the gentle lowing of cows, and the setting sun painting the fields in hues of orange and gold. He was a solitary man, content in his own company, finding joy in the simple acts of planting seeds and watching them grow. His small farmhouse, weathered by time and sun, stood nestled amongst rolling hills. The barn, a sturdy structure built by his grandfather, was Silas's pride and joy, a sanctuary for his animals and a storehouse for the fruits of his labor. He wasn't lonely, not exactly. He had his animals, his work, and the comforting familiarity of the land. But sometimes, especially on long winter nights, a flicker of longing would stir within him. A longing for companionship, for someone to share the beauty of his world with. He pushed those feelings aside, convinced that such things weren't meant for him. Silas was a practical man, grounded in reality, and love felt like a distant, unattainable dream. He never expected his life to change, certainly not in the way it was about to. The change began with a storm, a furious tempest that descended upon the valley with unrelenting force. The wind howled like a hungry wolf, tearing at the trees and rattling the windows of Silas's farmhouse. Rain lashed down in sheets, turning the fields into muddy rivers. Thunder boomed overhead, and lightning illuminated the landscape in brief, blinding flashes. Silas secured the barn doors, making sure the animals were safe and dry. He watched the storm rage from his window, a sense of unease settling in his stomach. It was more than just a storm, it felt like a warning, a sign of something significant to come. The air crackled with an unnatural energy. He stoked the fire in his hearth, seeking comfort in the warmth and the familiar crackling sound. The storm intensified, and Silas found himself unable to shake off the feeling that his peaceful life was about to be disrupted. The wind seemed to scream a name he couldn't quite decipher, and the shadows danced ominously in the corners of the room. He felt a deep, primal fear, a sense of impending doom that he couldn't explain. The storm raged through the night, and as dawn finally broke, painting the sky in bruised shades of purple and gray, Silas ventured out to assess the damage. Branches littered the yard, and one of the fence posts had been knocked down. He sighed, already planning the repairs. As he approached the barn, he noticed the large wooden door slightly ajar, swinging precariously in the wind. He frowned, he distinctly remembered securing it tightly the night before. Pushing the door open further, he stepped inside, his eyes adjusting to the dim light. Then he saw her. Huddled in a corner of the barn, amidst the hay bales, was a woman. She was pale and shivering, her clothes soaked and clinging to her thin frame. Clutched tightly in her arms was a small bundle, wrapped in a tattered blanket. Silas rushed towards her, his heart pounding in his chest. He knelt beside her, gently touching her shoulder. "Are you all right?" he asked, his voice filled with concern. The woman stirred, her eyes fluttering open. They were wide and filled with fear, but as she looked at Silas, a flicker of hope seemed to ignite within them. "Please," she whispered, her voice barely audible above the wind. "Help us." Without hesitation, Silas carefully lifted the woman into his arms, mindful of the baby she still held close. She was light as a feather, and her skin was cold to the touch. He carried her towards the farmhouse, his brow furrowed with concern. He kicked the door shut behind him with his heel, a wave of determination washing over him. He would help her, whatever it took. Inside the warm kitchen, he gently laid her down on the old wooden settle near the fire. He then carefully unwrapped the baby, revealing a tiny, fragile infant with delicate features. The baby was asleep, breathing softly. Silas quickly gathered blankets and wrapped them around the woman and the child, trying to restore some warmth to their chilled bodies. He then set about preparing some hot tea and broth, his movements efficient and purposeful. He had never cared for anyone before, but instinct guided him. He knew they needed warmth, nourishment, and rest. As he tended to the fire, he glanced at the woman and the baby, a strange mix of fear and compassion swirling within him. His life had irrevocably changed in a single, stormy night. The woman, whose name Silas learned was Sarah, slept fitfully for most of the day. The baby, thankfully, remained peaceful. Silas kept a watchful eye on them both, tending to the fire and ensuring they had enough to drink. As evening approached, Sarah finally stirred, her eyes opening with a dazed expression. Silas offered her a cup of warm broth, which she gratefully accepted. Slowly, as the warmth spread through her, she began to regain her strength. She looked at Silas, her eyes filled with gratitude. "Thank you," she whispered, her voice still weak. "You saved our lives." Silas simply nodded, unsure of what to say. He felt a strange sense of responsibility towards her and the baby. After a few moments of silence, Sarah began to tell her story. She was a widow, she explained, her husband having succumbed to a fever just a few weeks before the baby was born. With no family and no means of support, she had been traveling, hoping to find work, when the storm caught her. She had sought shelter in his barn, desperate to protect her newborn. Her voice cracked with emotion as she recounted her hardships. Silas listened intently, his heart aching for her. Silas, deeply moved by Sarah's plight, felt a surge of protectiveness towards her and her child. He couldn't imagine what she had been through, losing her husband and then facing the storm alone with a newborn. He decided he would do everything in his power to help her get back on her feet. He started by offering her a room in his house. It wasn't much, just a small spare room, but it was warm and dry and far more comfortable than the settle by the fire. He helped her with chores around the house, fetching water, chopping wood, and tending to the animals. He even learned how to change the baby's nappies, a task he initially found daunting but quickly mastered. He never pried into her past, respecting her privacy and allowing her to share only what she felt comfortable with. He simply offered a helping hand and a listening ear, a silent promise of support. As the days turned into weeks, Sarah began to regain her strength and her spirit. She started to help with the cooking and cleaning, and a sense of normalcy slowly returned to the farmhouse. Silas found himself looking forward to her presence, enjoying her quiet company and the soft gurgling sounds of the baby. The close-knit community, however, was not as accepting as Silas. Whispers began to circulate, fueled by speculation and gossip. Old Mrs. Henderson, known for her sharp tongue and even sharper eyes, was the first to voice her concerns. A woman living alone with a bachelor farmer? It's just not proper, she declared to anyone who would listen. Others joined in, their imaginations running wild. Some accused Sarah of being a gold digger, preying on Silas's kindness. Others questioned her past, suggesting she was running from something. The rumors spread like wildfire, reaching even the ears of the local pastor. Silas, however, remained oblivious, or perhaps simply chose to ignore the gossip. He was too focused on Sarah and the baby, on making sure they were safe and comfortable. He knew in his heart that he was doing the right thing, and that was all that mattered. He continued to help Sarah with the daily tasks, shielding her from the harsh realities of the outside world and creating a haven of peace within his little farmhouse. He knew the whispers were there, but he refused to let them penetrate the walls of his home. Despite the wagging tongues, Silas remained steadfast. He named the baby Hope, a testament to the resilience he saw in Sarah's eyes and a beacon of light in his own life. He spent hours watching Hope sleep, marveling at her tiny hands and feet, feeling a connection to this little being that he couldn't explain. He continued to care for Sarah, ensuring she had everything she needed. He noticed the way she looked at Hope, a mixture of love and sorrow, and he understood the weight of her loss. He tried to ease her burden, offering her gentle encouragement and reminding her that she wasn't alone. One afternoon, while Sarah was tending to the garden, Mrs. Henderson approached Silas. She cleared her throat, her expression unreadable. "Silas," she began, her voice softer than usual, "people are talking. They don't understand." Silas simply looked at her, waiting for her to continue. "They think you're being taken advantage of." Silas smiled gently. "I know what I'm doing, Mrs. Henderson," he said. "And I believe I'm doing what's right." He turned and walked away, leaving Mrs. Henderson speechless in the garden. The whispers might continue, but Silas's resolve remained unshaken. His focus was on Sarah and Hope, and their well-being was all that mattered. Silas often watched Sarah as she cared for Hope. He was struck by her unwavering dedication, the gentle way she held her daughter, the soft songs she sang to soothe her. He saw the strength in her eyes, a quiet determination that belied the hardships she had endured. He witnessed her resourcefulness as she mended clothes, created toys from scraps of wood, and found creative ways to stretch their meager supplies. She was a survivor, a woman who refused to be broken by tragedy. Silas admired her spirit, her ability to find joy in the smallest of things, even in the face of adversity. He saw how Hope thrived under Sarah's care, growing stronger and more vibrant each day. The baby's laughter filled the farmhouse with a warmth that Silas had never known before. He realized that Sarah wasn't just surviving, she was building a new life for herself and her daughter, a life filled with love and hope. And he, Silas, was privileged to be a part of it. He watched them, feeling a sense of peace settle over him, a sense of belonging that he had longed for but never thought possible. He was no longer alone. As the seasons changed, so did Silas's feelings for Sarah. What had started as compassion and a sense of responsibility began to blossom into something deeper. He found himself drawn to her gentle nature, her unwavering optimism, and her quiet strength. He admired her resilience, her ability to face adversity with grace and determination. He started to notice the small things, the way her eyes sparkled when she laughed, the way she hummed softly as she worked, the way she instinctively knew how to comfort Hope. He realized that he was falling in love with her, not out of pity or obligation, but out of genuine affection and respect. He tried to suppress these feelings, reminding himself that she was a widow, still grieving her loss. He didn't want to burden her with his emotions, especially when she was still so vulnerable. But the more time he spent with her, the stronger his feelings became. He knew that he couldn't keep them hidden forever. He longed to tell her how he felt, to let her know that he saw her not just as a woman in need, but as a beautiful, strong, and inspiring person. He knew it was a risk, but he couldn't deny his heart any longer. Sarah, too, began to see Silas in a new light. Initially, she had been overwhelmed by his kindness, grateful for his help and shelter. But as time passed, she started to appreciate his quiet strength, his unwavering integrity, and his gentle heart. She saw how tirelessly he worked on the farm, how patiently he cared for the animals, and how tenderly he treated Hope. She noticed the way his eyes crinkled at the corners when he smiled, the way he always made sure she had enough to eat, the way he instinctively knew when she needed a helping hand. She realized that Silas wasn't just being kind, he was genuinely caring, offering her and Hope a safe haven and a new beginning. She had been so consumed by grief and loss that she hadn't allowed herself to think about the future. But now, as she watched Silas, she began to see a glimmer of hope, a possibility of happiness that she had thought was lost forever. She started to feel a warmth in her heart, a feeling that was both comforting and unsettling. She knew that she was starting to care for Silas, not just as a friend, but as something more. But could she ever truly love again? Could she ever forget the pain of her past and embrace a new future? The questions swirled in her mind, leaving her confused and uncertain. Just as Silas and Sarah were beginning to navigate their complicated feelings, a new threat emerged. A virulent illness swept through the valley, affecting both humans and animals. People started falling ill, their bodies weakened by fever and cough. Fear gripped the community as the illness spread rapidly, leaving a trail of sickness and sorrow in its wake. Hope, being so young and vulnerable, was particularly susceptible. One morning, Sarah woke to find Hope feverish and listless. Her tiny body trembled, and her breathing was shallow and rapid. Sarah's heart clenched with fear. She knew that if Hope didn't get better soon, the consequences could be dire. Silas, too, was deeply concerned. He had heard stories of infants succumbing to the illness, and he couldn't bear the thought of Hope suffering. He and Sarah worked tirelessly to care for Hope, taking turns to cool her fever, soothe her cough, and keep her hydrated. They prayed for her recovery, their hopes and fears intertwined. The illness became a shared crisis, drawing them even closer together. Days turned into nights as Silas and Sarah maintained their vigil by Hope's bedside. They barely slept, taking turns to watch over her, their faces etched with worry and exhaustion. Silas brewed herbal remedies based on old family recipes, while Sarah sang lullabies in a hushed voice, hoping to soothe Hope's suffering. They shared stories and memories, finding comfort in each other's presence. They spoke of their pasts, their dreams, and their fears, their vulnerabilities laid bare in the face of Hope's illness. Silas learned about Sarah's childhood, her love for music, and her hopes for a peaceful future. Sarah, in turn, learned about Silas's solitary life, his passion for farming, and his hidden dreams of having a family. The crisis stripped away their inhibitions and insecurities, revealing the true depth of their characters. They supported each other, comforted each other, and strengthened each other's resolve. As they fought for Hope's life, they discovered a love and understanding that transcended their individual fears and uncertainties. The shared ordeal forged an unbreakable bond between them. Finally, after what seemed like an eternity, Hope's fever began to break. Her breathing became easier, and her tiny body relaxed. She stirred in her sleep, a faint smile gracing her lips. Sarah and Silas exchanged a look of profound relief, tears welling up in their eyes. They continued to monitor her closely, ensuring she regained her strength. Slowly but surely, Hope began to recover, her laughter once again filling the farmhouse with joy. The illness had been a terrifying ordeal, but it had also brought Silas and Sarah closer together than ever before. They had faced their fears, shared their vulnerabilities, and discovered a love that was stronger than any adversity. They knew that their lives were intertwined, that they were meant to be together. As Hope grew stronger, so did their feelings for each other. The time had come to acknowledge the love that had blossomed in the midst of hardship. Silas knew he had to speak his heart. He could no longer keep his feelings hidden. The future was uncertain, but one thing was clear, he wanted to spend it with Sarah and Hope. One evening, as the sun dipped below the horizon, painting the sky in vibrant hues of orange and pink, Silas led Sarah to the small hill overlooking his farm. Hope was asleep inside, and a peaceful silence enveloped them. He took a deep breath, his heart pounding in his chest. He had rehearsed what he wanted to say 100 times, but now, the words seemed to elude him. He turned to Sarah, his eyes filled with sincerity. "Sarah," he began, his voice slightly trembling, "I know this might be too soon, and I know you've been through so much. But I need you to know how I feel." He paused, gathering his courage. "I love you, Sarah. Not out of pity, not out of obligation, but because you are a kind, strong, and beautiful woman. You and Hope have brought so much joy into my life, and I can't imagine my life without you." He reached for her hand, his touch gentle and reassuring. "Sarah, will you marry me? Will you give me the honor of becoming your husband and Hope's father?" He looked at her, his heart laid bare, waiting for her answer. The fate of his future hung in the balance. Sarah's eyes widened, her heart pounding in her chest. She hadn't expected this, not so soon. Silas's words echoed in her mind, stirring a mix of emotions, gratitude, affection, and a lingering fear. She looked at him, seeing the sincerity in his eyes, the genuine love that he offered. But the memories of her past flooded back, the pain of losing her husband, the uncertainty of her future. Could she truly move on? Could she give her heart to someone else? Could she trust that happiness wouldn't be snatched away again? She pulled her hand away gently, her expression conflicted. "Silas," she began, her voice barely a whisper, I don't know what to say. You've been so kind, so generous. You saved our lives, and I'm eternally grateful. But I'm still grieving, still trying to find my way. I don't know if I'm ready for this." She looked down at her hands, her voice filled with uncertainty. "I need time, Silas. Time to think, time to heal, time to figure out what I truly want. She looked back at him, her eyes pleading for understanding. Please, don't ask me to decide right now. Silas, though disappointed, understood Sarah's hesitation. He knew she needed time, and he was willing to give it to her. He assured her that he wasn't going anywhere and that he would respect her decision, whatever it might be. He would continue to care for her and hope, offering his support and friendship without any pressure. In the days that followed, Sarah spent much time in contemplation. She reflected on her past, her present, and her future. She thought about her late husband, cherishing the memories they had shared, but also acknowledging that she couldn't let grief define her forever. She thought about Silas, his kindness, his strength, and his unwavering love. She realized that he had given her a second chance at happiness, a chance to build a new life filled with love and hope. She also thought about Hope, her precious daughter, and what was best for her. She knew that Hope needed a father figure, someone to provide love, guidance, and stability. She saw how Silas interacted with Hope, the gentle way he held her, the playful games they shared, the unconditional love he offered. She realized that Silas wasn't just offering her a marriage, he was offering Hope a family. And that was something she couldn't refuse. One morning, she found Silas in the barn, tending to the animals. She approached him, her heart filled with a newfound certainty. Silas, she said, her voice clear and strong, I've made my decision. Silas turned, his eyes filled with a mixture of hope and apprehension. And, he asked, his voice barely above a whisper. Sarah smiled, a genuine, radiant smile that reached her eyes. Yes, Silas, she said. I will marry you. Relief washed over Silas, followed by an overwhelming sense of joy. He reached for her, pulling her into a warm embrace. He held her tight, burying his face in her hair, whispering words of gratitude and love. Thank you, Sarah, he said. You've made me the happiest man in the world. They decided to have a small, intimate wedding, witnessed by a few close friends and neighbors. Mrs. Henderson, surprisingly, offered to bake the cake, a gesture of acceptance and support. The pastor, who had initially been skeptical, offered to perform the ceremony, acknowledging the genuine love that had blossomed between Silas and Sarah. It was a simple celebration, but it was filled with love, laughter, and hope. Sarah wore a simple white dress, borrowed from a friend, and Hope, dressed in a tiny white gown, served as the flower girl, her innocent smile lighting up the room. As they exchanged their vows, Silas and Sarah knew that they were embarking on a new chapter in their lives, a chapter filled with love, family, and endless possibilities. Life on the farm settled into a comfortable rhythm. Silas, Sarah, and Hope became a family, sharing meals, chores, and laughter. Silas embraced his role as a father, teaching Hope about the animals, the plants, and the importance of hard work. Sarah brought her gentle touch and her musical talent to the household, filling the farmhouse with warmth and melody. The community, seeing the genuine happiness that Silas, Sarah, and Hope shared, gradually warmed up to them. The whispers subsided, replaced by smiles and words of encouragement. Mrs. Henderson became a frequent visitor, offering Sarah advice on everything from gardening to childcare. The pastor, too, extended his blessings, acknowledging the power of love and compassion to overcome adversity. Silas and Sarah worked side by side, tending to the farm and building a life together. They faced challenges, as all families do, but they faced them with strength, resilience, and an unwavering love for each other. They had found solace in each other's arms, and together, they created a haven of peace and happiness on their little farm, a testament to the transformative power of kindness and love. They learned that sometimes, the greatest blessings come in the most unexpected ways, and that even after the darkest storms, there is always hope for a brighter tomorrow. Years passed, and the farm flourished under Silas and Sarah's care. Hope grew into a bright, cheerful young girl, full of energy and curiosity. She loved helping her parents on the farm, learning about the animals, the plants, and the changing seasons. Silas and Sarah watched her grow with pride and joy, their hearts overflowing with love. They had faced many challenges, but they had always overcome them together, their love growing stronger with each passing year. They had built a life filled with happiness, security, and unwavering support. The storm that had brought Sarah to Silas's barn had long since passed, but its impact remained, shaping their lives in profound ways. They had learned that even in the midst of the darkest storms, there is always hope, and that sometimes, the greatest blessings come in the most unexpected packages. They were a testament to the power of kindness, compassion, and love to transform lives and create a brighter future. Their story was a reminder that even the most solitary hearts can find love and connection, and that even after the most devastating losses, there is always hope for a new beginning. Their little farm, once a symbol of Silas's solitude, had become a beacon of love and family, a place where dreams were nurtured, and hope flourished. And so, the tale of Silas and Sarah became a legend in the valley, a story whispered from generation to generation. It was a story of a solitary farmer who opened his heart to a struggling widow and her child, a story of a woman who found hope and love in the most unexpected place, and a story of a family that was built on kindness, compassion, and unwavering love. It was a story that reminded people that even in the darkest of times, there is always light to be found, that even the most broken hearts can heal, and that even the most unlikely connections can blossom into something beautiful and enduring. The storm that had brought them together had long since faded into memory, but the lessons it had taught them remained, etched in their hearts and reflected in their lives. They had learned that love can conquer all, that family is not defined by blood but by choice, and that even the smallest act of kindness can have a profound impact on the world. And as the sun set each evening, casting a golden glow over their little farm, Silas and Sarah would hold each other close, watching hope play in the fields, their hearts filled with gratitude for the unexpected journey that had brought them together, a journey that had transformed their lives and created a love story for the ages.